Sharanam Gacchami Dumba Jumden de Dijen Java da Jumba Yandava Zobe Sanje Riva da Shazu Demba Devara Java Jigden Jemba Jevo Deve Galo Jurva Lana Meva Lada Menamje Dumba Sanje Jumden de Bejava Shaja Duva La Chazelo Chudo Jasu Chewo Dumba Jumden de Dejen Sheva Ta Jumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigva Dan Shamsu Temba Devara Jeva Jiden Jemba Jevo Deve Galo Jurva Lana Meva Lada Menamje Dumba Sanje Jumden de Pejawa Shaja Doba La Jaze Lo Jodo Jazo Je Wo Dumba Jumden de Dejen Shewa Ta Jumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigwa Dan Shamsu Demba Dewara Shewa Jigden Chemba Jebu Dube Kalu Jurwa Lana Meba Lada Menamje Dumba Sanje Jumden de Pejawa Shaja Duba La Shazelo Jodo Jazo Je O Sanje Chudan Soje Chonama La Chanju Bado Tane Jazo Je Tagi Chöje Jebe Zonama Je Dola Penje Sanje Jobara Sho Sanje Chudan Soje Chonama La Janju Bado Dane Jazo Je Tagi Chöje Jebe Zonama Je Dola Penje Sanje Jobara Sho Sanje Chudan Soje Chonama La Janju Bado Dane Jazo Je Dage Shushe Jibe Sonama Je Dola Penje Sanje Jobara Sho. Good morning, and this is the comfort of doing teaching online. While I can wrap myself with blankets just to keep me warm, you can also tune in to this talk while enjoying a cup of coffee or tea. Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? That's the era of technology we are living in. We have all these facilities, everything at the tip of our fingers. But how well are we aware of these facilities? How much are we grateful of such favorable conditions? Today is relatively a cold day, while most of us do not suffer from the chill. However, there are many people on the street really trying hard to keep themselves warm. We don't have to worry about that. There are many homeless people who are worrying what to have for lunch, whereas we have already, like for me, I've already decided what I'm going to have for lunch. But you may have already made plans for your lunch. It's just a matter of what to eat, isn't it? There are so many choices. You open your fridge and then you have to like, what shall I have for today? We are worried that we cannot decide on one thing, whereas there are thousands of people who do not have such luxury, such choice. But do we appreciate that? Do we really consider ourselves very fortunate? It is always good to remind ourselves that we have almost everything. We do not have any valid excuses not to practice Dharma. If we are really struggling for our subsistence, for our basic needs, then of course we have to put that as our priority. We have to first fulfill that and then think about Dharma practice later. But we are not in such a situation. We have all the facilities, external as well as internal. There are many people who are wealthy, who are well off, who have all the external facilities, but they lack internal facilities. Their faculties are impaired. They are so ignorant to realize the importance of Dharma practice. But we are not in that category. So we have no reason, no excuse not to practice Dharma. And moreover, we have been studying. Almost every week we have been attending talks. So what reasons are there for not to really put them into practice? So let's see how far have we progressed in our journey to really be mindful and utilize the time in Dharma practice. Remember in our last class, we have made that determination. We have made that resolve to be mindful of our actions and to strive to spend as much time as possible in Dharma practice. So let's look back, whether it has gone the way we wanted to or what happened. So let's spend maybe a few minutes going through the past week and see how you have spent your time. Let's do that. So what did you find? How did you spend the last 2 weeks? Did it go as you decided to? Were you able to set your motivation from the morning each day? If you find that it didn't go well as you wished, it's okay. We still have time. So this is the time to renew our resolve. Yes, I resolved to do better. I made the determination to spend my time as much as possible in Dharma practice. But it didn't really happen as I wish. But never mind. I'm still alive. My faculties are intact. I can still do something. I can still rectify the mistakes. So today is the time to make a stronger resolution or resolve to do better in the coming days. So let's spend 1 minute just making that strong determination. Starting from today, I will try my best to spend the coming days as much as possible according to Dharma. Or even better, to spend most on Dharma practice. Let's do that. Let's generate a strong determination. That also not for yourself, but for the benefit of others. We have been going through the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. So our main goal is to liberate sentient beings. That can only happen when we become Buddha. And in order to become Buddha, we need to accumulate merits. We need to really abandon, eradicate all that afflictive emotions. Such afflictive emotions won't just go away by merely wishing for them to disappear. We need to apply antidote. We need to really apply or employ mindfulness and introspection so that we don't give even a single chance for them to cause havoc. So let's make that determination. Okay, with that, we will now get into the text. Last week we were discussing on the 4 practices as subscribed from sutras. So we talked about I think I don't have it here. It's avoiding the last part we talk about, avoiding criticism of Bodhisattvas. So today we are talking about practicing non-attachment. So attachment is another huge hindrance that impediments our progress, that impedes our progress. So it reads, Nyinguru wangi pensun tsui gyurshin tosam gombe chawa nyam gyurbe. Zashi kimda chinda kim namla chagwa pongwa gese laglen. Reward and respect cause us to quarrel and make hearing, thinking, and meditating decline. For this reason, give up attachment to the households of friends, relations, and benefactors. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. So the practice number 33 is to practice non-attachment or reduce our attachment to households of friends, relations, and benefactors. Why? It has consequences. If we are too attached to these material things, then there is a ramification from it. First of all, as a practitioner, our main focus or main activity is to practice Dharma. When we have strong attachment, especially to material things, then we have to pursue all this. When we pursue this, we waste time. We get derailed from our journey. We get distracted. Our attention, our focus, our effort, all that is redirected towards acquiring those material things. We say the Tokme Chawamawa. When you have too many goals, you have to put too many efforts. As a practitioner, your goal should be only one, that is to achieve enlightenment. So, another consequence is, it says, reward and respect cause us to quarrel. Because we are attached to the material offerings, sometimes it ends up having a quarrel with others. For instance, when a benefactor, let me rephrase. In order to obtain whatever that material possession, you may end up quarreling with another practitioner because you are competing. Two of you are competing to one thing. And also here, mainly for people who rely on benefactors, it is so important that you don't get attached to them. When you get attached to them, then you, get involved in their life, their activity. Then you end up taking sides. in order to please the benefactor, we may end up acting against Dharma, just to please, because your concern is that if I displease the benefactor, then that benefactor may not support me. So I must make that person happy at any cost. So here, why is this coming? Why is this happening? Is because of our attachment to the offerings, the health the other person provides. I know of someone who has publicly endorsed that person's actions, even though the actions are very questionable. And he would come to us and complain, but in front of the person, directly, to that person, he would praise, oh, that's so great what you are doing, that's really good, wow, what you said, so great. And then even in the public, praise that person, praise that person's action. But then when he comes to us, he complains that what he was doing was wrong, it is not according to Dharma. So I told him that in that case, why did you endorse him? Why did you encourage him? You should correct the person right away. Oh, but then, this. Yeah, there are people like that. So there is this danger. I think those whom you have known me long enough, I am quite straightforward. So some Malaysian friends, sometimes they will start the conversation like this. Rinpoche, I have a confession to make, but please don't scold me. Obviously, yeah, I scold people. But you have to correct them, isn't it? Even if they were your biggest benefactors, but the person is not doing the right thing, then we should let go. We should be willing to accept the consequences. But it is our duty, it is our responsibility to correct them. And then it says, and making hearing, thinking, and meditating decline. In order to progress in our spiritual journey, we need to meditate. But before meditate, we need to contemplate. Before even considering contemplation, we need to first study. We need to listen to the teachings. Ma tu be ji shin, ma shi be ji sam, ma shi be ji gom, ma gom be ji tol. That's what Lama Adisha says. Ma tu be ji. Now I mix. So anyway, the main point is that in order to progress in our Dharma journey, in the spiritual journey, we need to incorporate all these three activities: listening, contemplation, and meditation. So when we are so obsessed and engrossed in pursuing material gains, because of our attachment to these things, then we do not have time for such practices. And therefore, our practices of hearing, contemplation, and meditation will decline. So, like the author of this text, Gyalse Zangpo, he has practiced, he has lived by what he taught. He walked the talk. So one time he was invited to a benefactor's place, and the benefactor was planning to make a huge offering and also was going to request him to stay at their place for 10 days. But that night, the Gyalse Zangpo left. He knew about this, he left. And then one time, Gyalse Zangpo refused to accept any offerings. But later, upon others' insistence, so he started accepting. But during those times, in order to avoid all this, those who make the biggest offerings, he didn't acknowledge that well. There was very little acknowledgement. Normally it's the other way around, isn't it? Normally when somebody gives you a huge offering, then you will, give them, acknowledge them, and then try to repay their kindness and all that. But Gyalse Zangpo, he did the opposite. Those who give very minimum offering, he gave much acknowledgement and showed express appreciation. But of course, it's not that he didn't appreciate all that. It's just to avoid this kind of thing. And then even Lama Tsongkhapa was during his time. Lama Tsongkhapa was very famous, and he has so many followers. And one time the Chinese emperor invited Lama Tsongkhapa to China. But Lama Tsongkhapa declined. So those days, when you are invited by the emperor of China, it is such an honor, and then definitely in terms of material gains, there will be a lot of offerings. But Lama Tsongkhapa just declined. And when the second time invitation, when they send the emissary or the person, the messenger, Lama Tsongkhapa, they couldn't find him. Lama Tsongkhapa was already in the cave. So this shows the importance of non-attachment. Sometimes what happens is when we are so attached to these things, we get carried away. We know from our own experience, our greed has no limit. If we had one, we would desire for another one. First small car, bigger car, another bigger car, one house, two houses. There is no contentment, and there's no limit unless we apply or we practice contentment. So contentment is said to be the best wealth. Even if you have billions of dollars, if you do not have contentment, then you are still poor. Remember, there is saying that he is so poor that only thing he has is money. And then what happens is, when you are so obsessed with these material things, not just material, if you are attached to worldly things, the worldly possessions, material things, fame, name, whatnot, there is this danger of engaging in praising oneself and disparaging others. Remember, that is one of the Bodhisattvas' transgression, vows transgression. In order to obtain such title or such status or such material things, we will be willing to present ourselves in an exaggerated way, praise ourselves, and when we find that that benefactor is planning to give such offering to another practitioner, then what will we do? We engage in means to bring that person down so that we will get the offering instead. So this is also prone to even lay people, because we desire for praise. We want to look, well in another person's eyes. That's also attachment to status. In order to get that, we may engage in criticizing others. So in order to bring yourself up, you have to bring the other person down, isn't it? Otherwise, you won't really shine or stand out. So there are many reasons why one of the practices of the Bodhisattva is to practice non-attachment, to reduce our attachment. Tsumyoseki shensim chujurshin geweseki chuzu nyamjurwe tejiri shenji yidu miungwe tsikzuk pongwa gese lagleyins. So the next one is avoiding harsh speech. We already talked about criticism. So now is harsh words. Harsh words disturb the minds of others and cause deterioration in a bodhisattva's conduct. Therefore, give off harsh words which are unpleasant to others. We know when we are at the receiving end, we don't like it. We don't like other people to use harsh word on us. We are not talking about bodhisattva practice or anything. Just using harsh word is not right. Nobody likes that. So harsh words disturb the minds of others. So here harsh word is saying nasty things about other person, either finding fault with the person's appearance or making up some what do you call criticism of the person. It could be true, it could be unfounded, but you just point out all this. So here I came across some nice quotes. It says, "Words are free. It's how you use them that may cause." It's so true, isn't it? Whatever you say, of course, words are free, but it's how you use them. If you use them in a pleasant way, there is what do you call consequences to that. It would be a pleasant consequences. People will like you. You will gain friends. People appreciate. You can make people happy. But whereas if you use them in a harsh way, then that may cause you a lot more. Your relationships, your friendships, that can be destroyed just because of one harsh word. It says, "Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder." And I like this one. "The tongue has no bones, but is strong enough to break a heart. So be careful with your words." A broken bone can heal, but a wound a word opens can fester forever. So these are we are not from the Dharma point. It's just a conventional common sense, isn't it? And then it says, from the Dharma point, it says, "and cause deterioration in a Bodhisattva's contact." So what does that mean? Bodhisattva's contact is to speak, pleasantly. Remember Duwe Bushi, the four means to gather disciples. First is practice of generosity. So some people, from the beginning, they may not be interested in Dharma. So you help with material gifts. You give away material things, and then slowly, you can give Dharma. When you give Dharma, also we have to, we have to speak in a pleasant way. So these are kind of quotes of Bodhisattva. Bodhisattvas have to do it. So if you engage in high speeds, then it is like you are kind of violating that quote, that Bodhisattva's quote of ethics. That's why it deteriorates the Bodhisattva's conduct. And when it comes to Gyalse Tokme Zangpo, it says that Chinra Shilang, Lama, Lobenam, Geshinam, Pumbuam, Chobuam. Gyalse Tokme Zangpo, when he addressed anybody, he always used this honorific term. Either he addressed them as teachers, as elders, as whatever the political status they have, they address with that. Never ever he has called a person by their name. So when it comes to us, we cannot even address our teachers properly. In Tibetan tradition, it is quite considered rude to just call a person by their first name. Let alone addressing your own teacher. So the Gyalse Tokme Zangpo, he had an attendant. And when he calls his attendant, he always says, Nyene dasang la tumban dasang mingyang gi bebe sue me. So he always addressed his attendant as Tumba. Tumba is literally is like teacher, one who shows the path. That's why we use the term Tumba to Buddha. Tumba Chumden de Deshin Shawa. So one who shows the path is like a teacher. So it says that Gyalse Tokme Zangpo has never called his attendant by his name, always refer to him as Tumba. So that's the way. So if you want to address somebody, a Tibetan, the easiest way is just to add that La, Tenzin La, Tashi La, Doma La. So easy. Geshe La. Geshe itself is an honorific term, is a title. But you add La, then you will not insult or hurt anybody. People love to hear their name with La at the end. And then this also applies, because when we use harsh word, we also don't know who we are using that harsh word to. If the other person happened to be a realized being, then big mistake, huge consequences. So we have to be careful. Even in your family, we know that harsh word can cause so much quarrel. So that's why it is important. Therefore, give up harsh words which are unpleasant to others. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. So mainly it's like you have this, what is that one? Don't do unto others the things that you don't want others to do on you. So exactly, you put yourself in other people's shoe, and then apply that logic. Since I don't like to hear harsh words, I don't like to be spoken in that kind of tone and manner, others wouldn't like. Therefore, I should not. Then the 35th practice is about overcoming afflictions. Nyomo komna nyembe doka wes. Chenshi gebu nyembe sunsune chaso nyomo tambo kemata burjum cheba jese laglins. So this is about overcoming afflictions. Habitual disturbing emotions are hard to stop through counteractions. Armed with antidotes, the guards of mindfulness and mental alertness destroy disturbing emotions like attachment at once as soon as they arise. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. So here is a habitual disturbing emotions are hard to stop through counter actions. So it's not saying that it cannot be. It's that as and when afflictive emotions arise, we need to apply antidotes. If we do not, and if we let if we give free hand to our afflictive emotions, then it will become hard to later counter it, because we have already given them the freedom. Remember, I think I have quoted here the Zendagomi's that line, which says that if you want to change the taste of a piece of wood that was soaked in the bitter taste for a very long time, you cannot expect that taste to change with just a drop of honey or something sweet, because it has been soaked in that bitterness, that bitter taste, for a very long time. So it is very difficult to change it or turn or transform that taste of bitterness to sweet by just one dip. But if we had quickly picked up the moment it was dropped in the bitter that liquid, and then if we soak it with the sweet solution, then there is chance. So likewise, we should not let afflictions become a habit, like anger, for instance. If you don't do anything about your anger issues, it will get worse. I think I have cited this experiment from social psychology. So they have experimented whether catharsis helps to reduce anger or aggression in this case. But they realized that the more you engage in this kind of catharsis, where you express your frustration and anger, you become more aggressive instead of becoming less aggressive. So this aligns with what the teaching says. The more we accustom to it, the more we engage in that particular action, it becomes our habit. When something becomes our habit, it is so hard to change. So for anger, for instance, anger, when we realize that we have anger issue, we should really try to work hard. We should apply the antidotes, the countermeasures. It may not be easy. Our anger will not dissipate within a week's time. But if we are persistent in applying the antidote, there will come a day where your anger is not so quick to arise. Even when it arises, you will be able to notice it. Remember, I told you my own story. When I first went to monastery, I didn't even know that I had the anger issue. It comes out so quickly. Just a tiny thing, and then it brings on. But through practice, of course, you like in my case, it's not that I have overcome anger. I still get angry. So don't test me. But there were many instances where I can feel it rising. That was not there before. I can feel the agitation arising. Earlier there was no that gap. The stimulus, when I come across the stimulus or whatever the incident, it flares up. But now there is this gap. You can sense you're getting agitated. You can sense your anger is arising. And that's where you have the choice, whether you want to let that anger build up or you want to put it down. So that's the main point, that we should not give a free hand to our afflictions. It's not just anger, jealousy, greed. We just talked about attachment. All these, as and when they arise, we have to identify them and then apply. So then counter it. So what is the best way to do that? He says, armed with antidotes, the guards of mindfulness and mental alertness, destroy disturbing emotions like attachment at once. So there I have a picture here. This is like, imagine if you are those, it doesn't have to be those days, but of course it's just for the dramatic effect, or I don't know. So when you go to, we see those movies, the ancient times, in order to enter the palace, you have this huge gate, and then they have those 2 or 3 guards standing there. So they will be checking everybody who passes that gate. If there were anything funny business going on, they will spring into action. They will be holding a spear. Those days, of course, a spear and all this. Nowadays, at the gates, just like the White House there, you cannot even go near the fence. You will be chased away. So it is like that. The guards, 2 guards, are like the, in our case, the 2 guards are the mindfulness and mental alertness. So for us, we don't have the physical guards, but we use our mindfulness and mental alertness. Mental alertness is the introspection. So mindfulness is the one that remembers to engage in Dharma, engage in virtue, and to restrain ourselves from engaging in non-virtue. So it's reminding ourselves, remembering that that's what I am supposed to do. In this case, remembering that I should not allow any of the afflictions to arise within me. And then you have the other guard, which is this vigilant, what is called the introspection awareness, which is like the spy, which is like the camera that watches you, what your mind is thinking, your, what you call, monitors the 3 doors of action. What is our mind thinking? What is our speech saying? What is our physical, the body is engaging? So all this, so we need to have these 2 guards to protect us from the damage, from the harms caused by afflictions. So with these two guards, we have to destroy the emotions as soon as we shouldn't let them arise. First, we should try our best not even to arise. If there are any conditions that may give rise to all these afflictions, we should really counter that first. Never ever let afflictive emotions to arise. Even if we fail to do that, once they arise, we should really pound on it. It says, Burjum Java, Kese Lalens. Burjum is like kind of pound on them. As when they kind of lift their head, just punch them down. So that is the practice of Bodhisattva. And there is, in Junjuk, it's about how should we practice the mindfulness. So there is an analogy. I think I have mentioned this before. It's like, to do this well, be my sole objection, holding a strong grudge, I shall meet them. So it's like when it comes to countering, battling the afflictive emotions, we should have this obsession for antidotes and then grudge against the afflictions. So when we have the strong grudge, we will crush that person. Let's say if we hold a strong grudge against someone, what will we do? We will be thinking of ways to defeat that person. We will be thinking of ways to harm that person. And at every opportunity, at the first opportunity, we will try to crush that opponent. So likewise, we should view our afflictions as the worst enemy. Our, what is that word? Our arch enemy. Menaces, is that? We should view them as our menaces. I think there's a term, like the worst enemy. And then we should hold that grudge against that, because there is reason to hold that grudge, because it has caused us so much damage, so much harm. In terms of duration, how many lifetimes in the past it has caused. Even our worst external enemies cannot inflict such harm on us. But our afflictions have managed to inflict harms for such a long time. And then the harm itself is so disastrous, so extensive. Remember, we talked about it. No external enemies can bring us to lower realms or unpleasant birth. But these enemies within us, afflictions, can do that. So that's why we have reason to hold grudge. So that's how we should do. We should be obsessed on having the antidotes, acquiring the antidotes, and then hold a strong grudge against the afflictions. And with that, you employ the mindfulness. And another way is that what happens is why we are not that successful in defeating or overcoming our affliction is that we lack one of these. Sometimes we are not mindful. Sometimes we lack this mental alertness or the introspection awareness. And then we also sometimes we lack this conscientiousness. So in Junjuk it says that we should adopt our mindfulness the way as a person in a battle will cling to his sword. The way as a person in the battle clings to his sword, we should cling to our mindfulness. So if the person in the battle, if he loses his sword, then there's nothing for him to really attack or even defend himself. So with the fear of being killed by his or her opponent, the person will pick up the sword as quickly as it falls from his hand. Likewise, it says that we should, whenever we lose mindfulness, we should think of the damages, the negative consequences of losing the mindfulness. Because of this, we may end up in lower realms. We may end up as animals. We may end up in a destitute condition. So thinking of that, fearing that you may end up in such a situation, you bring back your mindfulness. Likewise, the introspective awareness. And then conscientious, remember, conscientiousness. Remember we talked about somebody carrying a jar of oil on the head. How carefully that person will take each step so that no spill of that oil happens. So likewise, with these two guards, we should always be careful not to engage in negative actions and always try our best to do virtue. So this is the practice of Bodhisattva. Dorna kandu cholam chi chejang rangi simji nekab chindashi kyundu tendan shenshin tenbayi shendun drupa jese lalins. So this is similar to the first one. Applying mindfulness introspection to accomplish others' goods. So this is like the essence. The gist of all this Bodhisattva practice is, in brief, whatever you are doing, ask yourself, what's the state of my mind? With constant mindfulness and mental alertness, accomplish others' good. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. Remember, you see here the CCTV in operation. So we have to do that. All the time monitor our 3 doors of actions. All the time check ourselves, what I am thinking. Does my thinking align with the Bodhisattva's practice? Does my thinking accord with the law of karma? Am I doing according to Dharma. So that's the practice, that's the main practice. With constant mindfulness, mental alertness. So with this, then accomplish others' good. Because the main goal, why we are striving in this path, why we are putting effort in Bodhisattva's practice, is to liberate sentient beings, to benefit sentient beings. So that one has to be the motivation. So with that, then have these what do you call mindfulness, mental alertness to help us guide in our practice. Tenpa nyambe chumgun jikpar jurus. This is talking about the faults of losing our mindfulness. So if you are told that there is a burglary going around in your neighborhood, how would you sleep? You will be so careful. You will be fully alert. You will have all these CCTV or whatever you have to monitor yourself, set up alarms, and then even night when you are sleeping, you will be every now and then you will be waking up to check whether windows are intact, whether doors are closed, whether there is any sign of intrusion. That's what we do, isn't it? That's what we should apply to our 3 doors every day. So Geshe Ben, his main practice is that Tani Semje Kagur, Nyembe Dongdong Chi Nela, Teba Meba Shen Chajume, Ko Dimna, Mayan Dim, Ko Lona, Mayan Lus. Says, I have nothing else, no other work except then standing at the door of my mind with a spear in hand, just watching, just monitoring my mind. What is my mind up to? Ko dimna ngayan tim, ko lona ngayan lu. If my mind is very active, then I will be also more active. If he is more relaxed, I will also relax. So it's so easy, isn't it? If we are able to constantly monitor our mind, because speech and body actions are all because of our mind. Our mind is like the commander. It gives the command, and then the troops, they just follow. So if we are able to monitor our mind and take appropriate actions, we will be free of many problems. So that's how the Kadamba masters progress in their path, by just watching their mind. It sounds so easy and simple, isn't it? It is not easy, but this is the way to go about practicing. Even if we spend hours in front of our prayer room, if we let our mind loose, we are not practicing. If we recite prayers for hours, But if we are not watching our mind, we are not practicing. There will be no gain, no progress. So in essence, this is the practice. Whatever we have talked, the 35 sets of practices, it all boils down to this one, to check the state of our mind all the time, whether what is called the Jolam Nambashi, whether you are sitting, whether you are moving, whether you are taking a walk, whether you are sleeping, we have to constantly monitor our mind. So that is the practice of Bodhisattva. So it's accomplish others' good. If we are able to monitor, accomplishing others' good will automatically come. Because we should also monitor, what am I thinking? Is my thinking according to Mahayana practice? My motivation is supposed to be the Bodhicitta one. Am I generating that kind of mindset? You see, all this will arise, automatically come. Then our practice becomes a real Dharma practice. Let's say if you are, remember we reflected, we kind of, look back on our actions in the past, of the past several days. And those, we see that what was lacking is we were not really monitoring our mind. Yes, you have to go to work, but even at the work, you can constantly monitor every now and then. Generate bodhicitta. His Holiness advised to do this daily practice of generating the two bodhicitta, the conventional and the ultimate bodhicitta. The advice is to first generate the conventional bodhicitta and then visualize that as a moon disk at your heart. And on top of that, then you contemplate on the emptiness, empty nature of things. And your mind is the one that is perceiving all this, but visualize that as a Vajra. So Vajra stands on the moon disk. So that's we are supposed to do every morning. So if you have done that in the morning, and then while at work, every now and then, you just remember that and kind of renew that, recharge that. So that's already you are practicing or you are meditating that too on the two bodhicitta. Okay, so we will stop here and we have two more classes. So I think we have enough. We can afford to stop here. Okay, let's dedicate our merits. Dagi jini zabe gyawa de tendan jowa kunla kangben dan gyabara juzun lozan tawayi tembe nyingbo rindu senje sho jambe bawe chedara kyamba dan kundo Zangpo tenyang dejen deda gwengi jesu talo je gyawa deda tamje rabdo ngo dusun shekbe gyawa tamje je Ngowa gala jodo ngaba de dage gewe zawa de gwenja Zangpo jeje rabdo ngowa ge. Thank you.